Yo, what's up guys? It's Noah here, and in today's video, I'm going to be covering the NBA slate on Draftkings for Friday, October the 21st. Now, once again, we have a big slate today, 11-game slate. Kind of to start the season, we've had like a 2-gamer, then we had a 12-gamer, then we had a 2-gamer, and now we're getting an 11-game slate for Friday. I think soon the slates will start balancing out, and we'll have some 5, 6, 7-game slates, but we got another big one for Friday. So what we're going to do, guys, is we're going to go game by game. We're going to talk through each game and kind of break down some plays I'm liking from each game. I'm going to try and go somewhat quickly. I don't want this video to be too long, so we'll just kind of give my brief thoughts, what I'm liking, taking a first look at this slate on Thursday night. But before we do get started with the video and the breakdown, guys, make sure you hit that like button down below. If you do enjoy these DFS videos, hit that subscribe button if you have not yet. Make sure to check out the sponsor of the video, PrizePicks. So PrizePicks, they are a player prop based DFS site. Very simple and easy to use. You're just taking more or less on a player's projection. They do actually have some stuff already posted for Friday's games. There's not a ton on the board right now. It looks like the only thing they have posted is for the Charlotte and New Orleans game. We'll see if normally I do make PrizePicks videos and I will give out some props that I like. So we'll see, what props get added tonight at the time I'm making this video. If not many props get added tonight, then I'll probably wait till sometime on Friday, early Friday morning to post my PrizePicks video. But if you guys do want to know some player props that I'm liking for Friday, make sure to check out that PrizePicks video, whether it gets posted tonight or sometime on Friday. But yeah, PrizePicks, they're a player prop site, very simple, easy to use. You're taking more or less on a player's projection. You make up to 2 picks. You can make up to 5 picks though. You can also win up to 10 extra money on PrizePicks, and you can mix and match sports too. So if you're someone that likes to look at other sports, NFL, MLB, soccer, PGA, college football, PrizePicks probably offers it. Any sport imaginable, I'm sure PrizePicks has it. Again, you can mix and match sports. You can make multi-sport entries. It's a lot of fun. You guys definitely need to be playing on PrizePicks. If you're not, make sure to sign up with promo code Noah. When you do sign up with my promo code, PrizePicks will match your first deposit up to $100. And if you guys do enjoy all the content that I provide on YouTube and you want more content from me, more PrizePicks plays, more DFS content, core plays for DFS, for Draftkings, and for Yahoo, I provide a player pool for both Draftkings and Yahoo as well. That is all available on Patreon. If you guys want more content from me, check out the Patreon, link down below in the description. But let's talk through this big slate for Friday night. So we're going to start off with the first game of the night, the Pelicans and the Hornets. So this should definitely be an appealing game to target for DFS purposes. Last season, I know these were, especially Charlotte. I know Charlotte was a really fast-paced team, didn't play much defense. New Orleans, on the other hand, I think was about middle of the pack in terms of pace. But this should definitely be an appealing game to target. Zion in 9,200, I think is probably priced where he should be. Zion, they said first game he wasn't going to be limited, and he did play 30 minutes, so he really wasn't limited too much. He played 30 minutes in a blowout win, and he was really productive. 25 points, 9 rebounds, 3 assists, 4 steals. Look, Zion's going to stuff the stat sheet when he's out there. I think 9,200 is an appropriate price tag for him, but I wouldn't be surprised if he goes out here and puts up another 50 burger. He has that kind of upside, and this Hornets team, they're going to have no answer for Zion. So Zion's viable. Just don't think he's a standout option on a big slate like this. If he was cheaper, I'd have a little bit more interest. Brandon Ingram at 8K, I think it's just kind of priced where he should be. Terry Rozier, I do have quite a bit of interest in. I did like Terry Rozier a lot on the last slate for Wednesday. And Rozier was solid. He did lose some minutes because of blowout in that game against the Spurs, which was pretty annoying. Rozier only played 30 minutes when he normally plays like 35, 36. But 24 points, 6 rebounds, 6 assists from Terry Rozier, had over 40 DraftKings points. Rozier is going to have a really big role with the Hornets to start the season. No LaMelo Ball. Miles Bridges obviously not playing either. 7,700, I think Rozier he's kind of priced where he should be, but the upside is definitely there. He's going to have a really big usage rate. He's going to take a lot of shots. He's going to handle the ball quite a bit as well. He's basically their starting point guard right now. So I definitely like Terry Rozier. He's probably one of my favorite plays in this game. I think CJ McCollum is a solid option as well. CJ McCollum was pretty good in their first game, played pretty good minutes. Again, lost some minutes due to blowout, but 21 points, 4 rebounds, 6 assists, 3 steals from CJ McCollum. Now he gets a matchup against Charlotte, a team that played really fast last season that was pretty bad defensively. I don't know if much is going to change this year. I think this is, once again, going to be a pretty good matchup to target. So I think CJ McCollum is viable too. And then Jonas Valanciunas, love this matchup for J-Val. This last season, the Hornets were one of the most giving teams in terms of fantasy points to the center position. I know J-Val, I think he had some big games against Charlotte last season. Played twice against them, had 41 DK points. J-Val, I think his upside is a little bit limited now that he's playing alongside Zion. I think his usage won't be as good. Rebounds might take a little bit of a spike down as well. But Charlotte, man, they allow a ton of offensive boards. I know they were a really bad rebounding team last season. Like, this could definitely be one of those spots where J-Val gets like 20 points and 15 rebounds, gets a couple blocks. I think it's 7K. Like, he's definitely in play for tournaments. I do have some interest in him, especially in a really good matchup. And then the rest of the Hornets, like PJ Washington at 6,900, I think is priced appropriately. But Gordon Hayward, Kelly Oubre are still in play for me. They're pretty affordable. 5,800 for Hayward, 5,600 for Oubre. Both those guys are going to have plenty of opportunity here without Bridges and without LaMelo. Hayward should play pretty good minutes. Kelly Oubre did get into some foul trouble last game, but he was on pace to play pretty big minutes as well. And even with him being limited by foul trouble, he was still productive. Had 13 points, 4 rebounds, 2 assists, and 3 steals in only 22 minutes. So Oubre, obviously got in foul trouble last game, but if he's not in foul trouble here, he should play big minutes, should get plenty of opportunities. I think Hayward, Oubre, and Rozier are all in play from the Charlotte side. And on the Pelican side, I do have some interest in CJ McCollum. I do have some interest in J-Val. Probably it from this game. I don't see too much else I'm really liking in this one. So let's move on to the next game, the Bulls and the Wizards. So looking at the Bulls here, they're going to be without Zach LaVine, which was kind of surprising. Zach LaVine did not play in their season opener. He's going to be out once again. It looks like they're going to be, kind of managing him this season, not really, forcing him to play a ton of games. So without Zach LaVine, we should expect pretty big roles for both DeMar DeRozan and Nikola Vucevic. Both those guys had great games in their last game against the Heat. DeRozan went off, had like over 60 Draftkings points, 37, 6, and 9 with 2 steals and a block. Vooch had a great game, 15 and 17 with 2 assists and 3 blocks. I think at 8,700, like DeRozan, he's definitely in play here. I don't want to chase the last game, but clearly without Zach LaVine, that is a big boost for DeRozan. We saw DeRozan be really, really productive last season whenever LaVine was off the floor. His usage sees a spike. He's going to have the ball in his hands a lot. He's going to take a ton of shots. This is definitely a better matchup than that last matchup against Miami. So DeRozan, I think, still in play. I think Vooch looks like a really good option at 7,500. He's pretty affordable on the slate. Definitely looks like one of the better center plays. He sees a nice boost in usage without Zach LaVine as well. We know Vooch is a really good rebounder. He's definitely a guy that can get you a double-double here. He can get some assists. He can get some defensive stats. Vooch can just do like a little bit of everything when he's on the floor, and he should play pretty big minutes here. In their season opener, he played, he played 33 minutes, so we're probably going to get mid to high 30s minutes from Vooch without Zach LaVine at 7,500 against the Wizards, a team that's historically been pretty bad defensively against the center position. I think it's a pretty good spot for Vooch. I like Vooch quite a bit today. I think him and DeRozan are both viable from the Bulls. I don't know if there's too much else, though, I'm targeting from Chicago. And then on the other side with the Wizards, not a ton really stands out from the Wizards. I think Porzingis is 7,800, is okay, but he's not like a standout play on an 11-game slate. There's just not much I'm really liking here. I don't see too much I really want to go to on the Wizards side. I think definitely my favorite plays in this game are DeRozan and Vooch. Even like Ayo, I don't hate at 5,500. Ayo was pretty productive in their season opener. He played pretty big minutes as well. He should definitely have a good role while Zach LaVine's out. 17 points, 6 rebounds, 4 assists, 2 steals, and a block from Ayo. Played 36 minutes. 5,500 I think is where Ayo should be priced, but he's still viable in my opinion because he will play big minutes and he should be productive when he's out there. He should average around a fantasy point per minute. But I like the big two from Chicago here. DeRozan and Vooch definitely think are solid options. Let's go ahead and move on to the next game, though. Don't see too much else in that one. So San Antonio and Indiana, talking about the Spurs and the Pacers. Starting off at the top here with Tyrese Halliburton. I definitely think Tyrese Halliburton is in play on the slate. He was pretty cheap last slate. I think he was like 7,200. He was one of the more popular plays on the slate. I think with his price tag coming up to 7,900, he'll still get some ownership here because 7,900 is still too cheap for Tyrese Halliburton. This was a guy that we saw priced around the 9K range for a lot of last season when he was with the Pacers. His role is going to be really good. He's going to be really productive on this Pacers team. He's going to play big minutes. He's a guy that can score, can get a lot of assists. He can get some rebounds as well. The Spurs are a pretty good matchup too. They played at a pretty fast pace last season. They weren't that good of a defensive team. I think we're probably going to see a lot of the same this season. So definitely Tyrese Halliburton I'm interested in here. And then I think these Spurs guys, so the Spurs were massive chalk last slate. Keldon Johnson was really popular. Jakob Poeltl was really popular. Devin Vassell, Trey Jones were all popular. All their price tags got bumped up a little bit, but I still don't think these guys are out of play. I mean, I think Keldon Johnson at 6,800 is now kind of priced about right. I think last slate he was 5,900, and that was just way too cheap. 6,800 is about right for Keldon Johnson, but clearly he's going to have a big role with the Spurs this season. Without DeJounte Murray, Keldon Johnson's probably going to lead this team in usage, going to take a ton of shots. He's a guy that can do everything when he's on the floor. Had 43 fantasy points in their first game, 20 points, 11 rebounds, 4 assists, 2 steals. He's still viable, in my opinion, just doesn't look as good as he did last slate. Same with guys like Jakob Poeltl and Devin Vassell. Vassell, I think, at 5,100 is still a solid option. Trey Jones at 4,900, I think, is still in play for value. These guys are going to get the minutes. I mean, Vassell, last game, he played 28 minutes, and that was in a blowout. Trey Jones, I know, did play a little bit in the blowout, played 24 minutes. He was limited a little bit. I'm not sure why he only played 24 minutes, but I would think most nights you're going to get like low 30s minutes from Trey Jones. He's still just 4,900. So like these Spurs guys, I'm not running to roster them today, but I definitely think they're still in play. I would say Keldon and Trey Jones are probably my 2 favorites, then Vassell, then Poeltl. But they're all viable once again here. I know Benedict Mathurin, he had a really big game off the bench for the Pacers. 5,500, like he's playable, but I'm probably not going to go there. I do think he's going to have a pretty good role off the bench. He's going to take a lot of shots. He took 15 shots last game, but I think the price tag is probably where it should be. I do want to talk about the Spurs or the Pacers bigs though. So we do have Miles Turner out here. Miles Turner was a late scratch last game. He got ruled out like 30 minutes before the game started. It was really just kind of out of nowhere. And we actually did see the Pacers start Terry Taylor at center. Now Terry Taylor was not super productive last game. And I know his minutes were not like super high, but I do want to pull off his game log. So he did play 24 minutes, had 8 points, 2 rebounds, 1 assist, 2 steals, and a block. He's only 3,600 and he's power forward and center eligible. Like if Terry Taylor starts again, I think he will be in play for value. There's not a ton of value on the slate with it being a really big slate. It's just, it's the beginning of the season. Everyone's healthy for the most part, so there's not going to be like a ton of glaring mispriced options. But Terry Taylor, assuming he does start again, I think is in play at 3,600. I would expect him to be a little bit better than he was last game. He historically has been a decent point per minute player and a guy that can, produce when he does get, minutes. Jalen Smith at 5K, I do still have a good amount of interest in as well, especially with Miles Turner out. He is questionable for this game. Keep an eye on it, but he was questionable last game and he wound up playing, so I'm assuming, he's going to play today. But without Miles Turner, that definitely benefits Jalen Smith. Last game, Jalen Smith was limited, I think, a little bit. I can't remember if I think he did pick up 2 quick fouls early on, but he still played 22 minutes, and he was still really productive. He had 30 fantasy points in 22 minutes, 16 points, 8 rebounds, 1 assist, and a block. Jalen Smith has shown when he was on the Suns, when he was with the Pacers, or when he's been with the Pacers, he has shown that he can be productive when he gets playing time. He's a guy that can average a fantasy point per minute. I would think if he's not in foul trouble and if everything's good here, he probably plays like 28 to 30 minutes. 5K I think is still a little bit too cheap for Jalen Smith. So I definitely like Jalen Smith on this slate as kind of a cheap value option. He's for sure gonna be in my potential lineup. We'll have to see. But that's probably it for this game. I don't see too much else I'm liking from San Antonio and Indiana. So let's move on to the next game. Talk about Boston and Miami. So this should be a really good game to watch. I just don't know, for DFS, it's probably not going to be one that's, that intriguing to target and to look to guys from, just because both Boston and Miami do play at pretty slow paces. They're both 2 pretty good defensive teams. In general, I think this will be, kind of a low-scoring game. But we know both Jason Tatum and Jaylen Brown have, a ton of are going to get a ton of opportunity. Both of them have a ton of upside. Don't love the matchup for either one. They're just kind of like low-owned dart throws on this slate. Same goes for Jimmy Butler. I think at 8,500, Jimmy Butler's price where he should be, especially for a tough matchup against the Celtics. Do want to talk about Bam Adebayo. So Bam Adebayo was obviously massive chalk last slate. He was one of the more popular plays on the slate. I played him in my main lineup. I felt, even though I knew he was going to be popular, I just thought last slate he was way too cheap. And he was obviously very disappointing. He was like a massive chalk bust. He finished with 23 fantasy points. He played 34 minutes. He played his full minutes, but he just wasn't productive, which was weird. Normally, Bam has historically been a pretty productive player when he gets minutes. I have a feeling that Bam is like, nobody's going to play Bam today, especially because his price tag went up, and he's probably not going to project that well in a tough matchup like this. So if you want to go back to Bam just for the low ownership, like I don't hate it. Like it would be so ironic, I don't know what's the word, but it would be so funny just to see Bam put up like a huge game here after he was massive chalk last slate and busted. more of a tournament play, but I don't hate going back to Bam. I still think 7,100 might be a little bit too cheap for him because we know Bam can consistently put up 40, 45 DK points. And if you get that from him at that price tag, you're probably going to be pretty happy. So Bam is still in play for me. He's probably my favorite play in this game. Like, I don't love a ton in this game. Tyler Hero did look pretty good starting last game, and it looks like he's going to start for the Heat this season. He played pretty good minutes as well, 34.5 minutes, 23 points, 6 rebounds, 1 assist, and 2 steals. Hero's a really productive player when he gets minutes. Obviously, he's a guy that can score the ball, can get some assists as well. Usage probably won't be as good in the starting lineup, but I thought that was going to be the case last game, and he put up over 36 fantasy points. So if Hero's going to continue to start and play 35, 36 minutes, I know the matchup's tough, but I still think Hero is viable. And that's probably it from this game. Like, I don't see too much else I really like. Malcolm Brogdon, was really productive in his first game with the Celtics. Now, he only played like 23 minutes, which was really weird. I felt like Brogdon was going to be a guy that was going to play like 28, 30 minutes off the bench for Boston, but he only played 23 minutes or 24 minutes. But he did have 16 points, 2 rebounds, 4 assists, and 2 steals in those 24 minutes. Again, 5,100 for Brogdon. If he's playing like 30 minutes, that's probably still too cheap for him. A little bit worried about him only playing 24 minutes last game. Like, I don't know what the Celtics' plan is for him in terms of minutes-wise. If he's going to still play, if he's going to continue to play like 24 minutes a night, then I'm not as excited about Brogdon. But if he can get up to like 29, 30 minutes here, then he becomes a pretty appealing value at just 5,100 because Brogdon is a guy that should be productive when he's on the floor. He's going to run that second unit for Boston. He should get some opportunity without either one of, or potentially one of Jaylen Brown or Jason Tatum on the bench. He should definitely be able to be productive in those minutes if those guys are, not on the floor. Tough matchup, but Brogdon, I think, is too cheap for the usage he should have. Just a little bit worried that, he only played 24 minutes in his first game with the Celtics. But that's it for this one. Not a ton to love in Boston, Miami. So let's move on to the next game, Detroit and New York. So looking at the Pistons and Knicks here, this is one that I think there's some appealing plays coming from this game. Julius Randle at 8,400. I still think it's a little bit too cheap for the upside that he has. He did have a really big game in their season opener, had nearly 50 fantasy points. At 8,400, I think Julius Randle is still viable here. Cade Cunningham was another guy that was pretty popular last slate. I think he was 7K last slate. Price tag got bumped up a little bit to 7,500. I'm not running to roster Cade Cunningham on this slate, but I still think 7,500 is too cheap for him. Cade Cunningham is one of those guys that can do everything when he's on the floor, can score, can get rebounds, can get assists. He's in play. I'm not like super excited about him though. Not a ton stands out though in this game. Outside of that, Jalen Brunson's probably going to have a good role for the Knicks this year. He's probably going to have pretty good usage, but I think at almost 7K, that's kind of where he should be priced. Jaden Ivey was really good in his debut with the Pistons. I know he played really well, had 35 fantasy points. He played over 30 minutes. He played 32 minutes. I think he's going to be a guy that, consistently averages probably around like a fantasy point per minute with the Pistons, just because when you look at this Pistons roster, there's not a ton of guys that are going to demand the ball, demand usage. I mean, they have Cade Cunningham, they have Bojan Bogdanovic, but like Isaiah Stewart's not a high usage player. Sadiq Bey, he'll shoot the ball, but I think Jaden Ivey's going to be productive when he's on the floor. At 6,100, not in love with him at that price tag, but I think he is viable here. That's really it though from this game. There's not a ton that I'm loving in the Pistons-Knicks game. Probably not going to be one that I really target much here. So I think we go ahead and move on to the next game. Talk about the Magic and the Hawks. So looking at the Hawks side first, starting off at the top with Trae Young and DeJounte Murray. These guys are very closely priced on DraftKings, just $100 difference. Trae, 9,700, Murray, 9,600. We saw both these guys be really productive, in their first game together. Trae put up 49 fantasy points, had 23 points, 3 rebounds, 13 assists, a steal, and a block. And then DeJounte Murray, I know he racked up a ton of steals. He had 20 points, 5 rebounds, 11 assists, 5 steals, and a block. Over 60 fantasy points, Yahoo scoring that is, for DeJounte Murray. But it looks like, even though these guys are going to be playing alongside each other, they're still going to be pretty productive. And I know Trae Young, he actually had like a ton of potential assists last game. He racked up, 13 assists. I think he had like 17 or 18 potential assists. So seems like Trae Young's assist numbers are still going to be pretty high. Seems like he's going to kind of be the primary ball handler when he's on the floor. They did stagger DeJounte and Trae last game, and I'm guessing they're probably going to do that the whole season where, when Trae comes out, DeJounte will come in. When DeJounte has to come out, Trae will come back in. One of those guys is going to be on the floor at all times. where they're priced at, 9,700 and 9,600, I don't think either one stand out as like priority plays today. But I wouldn't be surprised to see another big game from Trey or another big game from DeJounte, because we know both guys offer a ton of upside. But I'm not like going out of my way to roster them. Paolo Banchero, he was amazing in his debut with the Magic. He looked like one of the best rookies just kind of out of the gate. 27 points, 9 rebounds, 5 assists, 2 steals, played 35 minutes. Seems like Banchero is going to, I don't want to overreact to one game, but it seems like he's going to be putting up some good numbers this season with the Magic. He's probably going to lead the team in usage. Cole Anthony was out last game, which I think kind of just helped everyone a little bit. Banchero, now that he's 7,400, like, I'm not in love with him, but I definitely think after his first game and seeing, the stat line that he put up to start off the season, seems like he's going to be a guy that, kind of stuffs the stat sheet and does everything when he's on the floor. He was grabbing boards, he was getting assists, he was scoring the ball. He was doing everything when he was out there, and he played big minutes as well. So I definitely think Paolo Banchero is still viable. Just at 7,400, that feels like a correct price for him. But some guys like in the mid-range, not a ton I'm loving in this mid-range. Wendell Carter, John Collins, Franz Wagner, I think they're all priced where they correctly priced about right. I will say that if Cole Anthony is out again, that definitely benefits Wagner and Suggs both, but they did get priced up. Wagner's 6,200, Suggs is 6,100. Clint Capella, I mean, he's like the most frustrating guy to roster. I always feel like Clint Capella is too cheap, and then I roster him and he does nothing. 5,900 feels too cheap for Clint Capella because we know this is a guy that can go out there and put up 20 points and 20 rebounds like any night. But he was really disappointing in their opening night game against Houston. He only played 26 minutes. He's just a GPP option, but like I think at 5,900, like that's too cheap for Clint Capella for the upside that he has. He can go out there and put up 40, 50 fantasy points any night. I know he did have some success against Orlando last season. So I think it's a good matchup. I think it's a good spot for Capella. The price tag's really low, but he obviously does have somewhat of a low floor. His minutes have kind of been all over the place. Even last season, there was some nights he would play like 33, 34 minutes. Some nights he'd play like 25. You just don't really know what you're getting from Capella. But that upside, it's always on the table. But yeah, that's it for this game. There's really nothing else I'm targeting in this Magic Hawks game. So let's move on to the next one, talk about Toronto and Brooklyn. So looking at Brooklyn here, they're probably like a full fade for me. I really don't see anything I like on the Nets today. Kevin Durant and Kyrie Irving both offer a ton of upside and both can put up, a big game any night. On this slate, are they going to be like priority stud options for me? I don't think so. We're going to talk about John Morant, Nikola Jokic. Those are guys that I do like a little bit more. So not in love with the Brooklyn guys here. Ben Simmons is 6,500. I mean, Ben Simmons, I think, still offers some upside, but he wasn't great in his first game with the Nets. He did actually foul out in just 23 minutes, had just 4 points, 5 rebounds, and 5 assists. Ben Simmons is one of those guys that can do everything when he's on the floor, score, rebound, get assists. He has triple-double upside. He's probably going to have some triple-doubles this season. When those happen, it's going to be really tough to predict. But, like, he's a playable option at 6,500. The Toronto side, I think, is more appealing in this game just because we do have some underpriced guys here with, like, Siakam and Van Vliet. We know Toronto is going to run their starters really, really big minutes. We know we're getting, like, 35, 36 minutes from both Siakam and Van Vliet. Siakam played 34 in their season opener. Van Vliet played 38. 39 minutes for Van Vliet. Like, you're going to get upper 30s in minutes from Siakam, Van Vliet, Scotty Barnes, OG, probably Gary Trent too. Like, all these guys are going to play really big minutes. I think my favorite from Toronto is probably, it's close between Siakam and Van Vliet. I think Siakam, probably I would lean over Van Vliet. We just know what Siakam's going to do when he's on the floor. He's a good point per minute player. The minutes are going to be massive. The price tag's not too high at 8,100. He still looks like a really good center play. I think Van Vliet's a really good guard play as well at 7,600. Scotty Barnes, I'm just kind of indifferent on. He's okay. I'm not in love with him. OG, I do have some interest in. OG was really good in their season opener. I know he kind of stuffed the stat sheet, had over 40 fantasy points, 18 points, 7 rebounds, 5 assists, 3 steals, and a block. I know there's been a lot of talk about OG kind of taking on a bigger role this season, having more of an offensive role, taking more shots. And given that he put up 18 points, was able to kind of stuff the stat sheet, I think he took 12 shots. That's obviously good to see in his first game. Played big minutes as well, played 37 minutes. So, yeah, OG, Scotty Barnes, or not Scotty Barnes, but OG, Pascal Siakam, Van Vliet, probably my 3 favorite plays from this Toronto team. And in general, those are kind of my favorite plays from this game. I'm not loving much on the Brooklyn side. Most of my interest here is coming on Toronto, kind of with the main guys, specifically Siakam, Van Vliet, and OG. But let's move on to the next one, talk about Utah and Minnesota. So Minnesota, Talk about the kind of the big guys here. You got Karl-Anthony Towns at 9,400, Rudy Gobert at 9K. Towns was really disappointing, in his first game playing with Rudy Gobert. He didn't really do much. His stat line was really gross. 12 points, 6 rebounds, 7 assists. His assists were up, but his rebounds were way down. His scoring was down. That could have just been one bad game from Karl-Anthony Towns, but I think his upside is not going to be as good playing alongside Gobert just because Gobert gobbles up a lot of rebounds, which obviously is going to hurt Karl-Anthony Towns. I'm not in love with Towns at 9,400. Gobert, on the other hand, was amazing in his debut with the Timberwolves. He had a huge game. Obviously, this is a revenge game for him against his former team. Gobert in a revenge game against his former team, Gobert's not a guy that's going to demand the ball and take a lot of shots. All of Gobert's points are going to come from putbacks. They're going to come from dunks, guys setting him up. So, what can Gobert really do in a revenge game? I don't know, but he did have a great game in his first game with the Timberwolves. 23 points, 16 rebounds, 2 assists, a steal and a block, over 50 fantasy points. Vintage Rudy Gobert. Rudy Gobert has that upside where he can get you 25 points and 20 rebounds. Those games aren't going to happen a ton, but when obviously the days you do play Rudy Gobert, when he has those games, you're going to be looking really good. At 9K, I think Gobert, he's priced appropriately. I'm not really running to roster Gobert at 9K, but it was good to see him play really well in his debut with the Timberwolves. It's a revenge game here. Maybe there's some little extra motivation for him. He's tournament viable, but neither one of those Minnesota guys look that appealing on the slate. There's definitely other guys I'd rather spend that much salary for. And then on the Minnesota side, or some of the other Minnesota guys, Anthony Edwards, D'Angelo Russell, neither one stand out to me where they're priced at. On the Utah side, there's some guys on Utah that I think are a little bit appealing. I know Lauri Markkanen was pretty popular last slate. He was a lot cheaper than he was today. I think last slate he was 5,300, 5,400. Today he's 5,900. Price tag came up a little bit, but I think Lauri Markkanen is going to have a really big role with the Jazz. He had a really good game, first game, 17 points, 4 rebounds, 4 assists, 2 steals. He played 33 minutes. He took 12 shots, so he's definitely going to have a pretty good usage rate with the Jazz. I think he's going to rebound well. This Jazz team, they don't have a ton of scoring. There's not a ton of guys outside of Jordan Clarkson that are going to demand the ball. They got a lot of low usage players Kelly Olynyk, or not Kelly Olynyk, but Jared Vanderbilt. These are guys that aren't really going to demand the ball and take a ton of shots. So I think there's going to be plenty of opportunity for Lauri Markkanen. 5,900, he might be my favorite play on the Utah side. Don't hate Jordan Clarkson either, but I don't think Clarkson's a standout option on this slate. Jaden McDaniels had a massive game last game for Minnesota. He put up over 40 fantasy points, played 35.5 minutes, 19 points, 6 rebounds, 3 assists, 3 steals, and 2 blocks. I'll let other people chase that. I'm not going to roster Jaden McDaniels at 5,300. However, though, I do like Kelly Olynyk for value. So Kelly Olynyk did start at center for the Jazz, and he's going to be their starting center this season. Now, Kelly Olynyk was not very productive last game, but I do believe he got into foul trouble. He was really limited by foul trouble. He had 5 fouls in just 15 minutes. He only had 8 points and 1 assist in those 15 minutes. It was a really tough matchup, though, going up against Nikola Jokic. Obviously, going up against Rudy Gobert and Karl-Anthony Towns, I don't think this is the best spot for Olynyk either. But we know Kelly Olynyk can produce when he gets minutes, and DraftKings did make him power forward and center eligible. I think he might have been center only last night. I can't remember. But power forward and center eligible, only 4,800. Should start at center once again for the Jazz. Probably will get mid to high 20s minutes if I had to guess, if he can stay out of foul trouble. And again, he's a guy that can produce when he gets minutes. So definitely into Kelly Olynyk as a value play. Probably more for GPPs, but I think he is viable. Jared Vanderbilt also had a really big first half, but he didn't really do much in the second half. I think he's going to have a pretty big role with the Jazz this season. It is a revenge game for him as well against his former team. I know he also was in foul trouble and wound up fouling out. He played 18 minutes, fouled out in 18 minutes, but he did have 7 points, 12 rebounds, 1 assist, and 1 steal in just 18 minutes. Now, is Jared Vanderbilt going to average over a fantasy point per minute moving forward? He might. On the Timberwolves, he was a guy that averaged a fantasy point per minute. So I think as long as he stays out of foul trouble, there's definitely some upside for Jared Vanderbilt. Foul trouble is a little bit of a concern for him. He's not a high usage player. He's a guy that really relies on rebounds and putbacks and defensive stats, but he's cheap, and I think he will play decent minutes as long as he's not, fouling a bunch of guys. So don't hate Jared Vanderbilt for value. I think both Kelly Olynyk and Vanderbilt are kind of some GPP value plays you can consider. But that's really it for this game. I think we can go ahead and talk about the next game, the Grizzlies and the Rockets. So This is another one of the really appealing games on the slate. Two very fast-paced teams. This game should definitely be high scoring. Hopefully it can stay close. If it can, I think you could see a lot of plays come out and do really well from this one. Ja Morant, I think it's an amazing spot for Ja Morant here against Houston. This Houston team defensively, one of the worst defensive teams in the league. I mean, I know last season they were dead last in defensive rating. I don't think much is going to change this season. Ja should crush here. I think Ja's in a great spot. I think he's one of the better pay-up options on this slate. It's a tough slate because there's not a ton of standout value with it being 11 games, but I still think Ja is one of the better pay-up options. I think KPJ and Jalen Green both look solid as well. They're going to play really big minutes. KPJ was really good in their season opener. He played 34 minutes, had over 40 fantasy points. Jalen Green played over 32 minutes, had not as good of a game, 30 fantasy points, but he's still affordable at 6,100. I know Jalen Green was pretty popular last slate. I think he was 5,400. He'll be much lower owned today at 6,100. So in tournaments, I definitely think Jalen Green is viable here. I mean, this is just a great game to target. It's going to be a very fast-paced game. There's going to be a lot of shot attempts, hopefully a lot of points scored. I don't hate stacking up this game. Like normally, I don't game stack in NBA, but man, you could build some really high upside lineups with multiple guys in this game and just hope that it stays close. If it does, I could see a lot of guys doing well, and I think KPJ, Jalen Green, both in play on the Houston side. Definitely think Ja Morant's in play. Desmond Bane, I think, is kind of priced appropriately, but he should have a really big role for the Grizzlies while Dillon Brooks is still out, while Jaren Jackson Jr. is still out. He's basically going to be the number 2 option on offense, behind Ja Morant. And then looking at some other options that we can maybe go to, I was really interested in Şengün to start the season, but he actually came off the bench, so if Şengün's coming off the bench, it's going to be tough to go there. I know his minutes were not great off the bench, and I know that Bruno Fernando played really, really well. Şengün, he only played 22 minutes. Şengün can put up like 30 fantasy points in 20 minutes, but not going to go there if he's coming off the bench. Steven Adams, really good matchup, but I think he's priced about right. I know Sandy Alderman and John Conchar both played really well. They both started. I'm assuming they're going to start again. Alderman's up to 5,100 though. Conchar's up to 4,800. Neither one really stand out anymore. I know they were a lot cheaper last slate. Now that they're priced where they are, neither one look like great values. Do want to mention Bruno Fernando just because he did start last game and he did play really well. 25 minutes, 34 fantasy points from Bruno Fernando. He nearly had a freaking triple-double. Like, I can't believe it. 7 points, 9 rebounds, and 7 assists from Bruno Fernando. He also had 2 blocks last game. I mean, Bruno Fernando, he's never been this, super productive point-per-minute player. But if he's going to start and play mid to high 20s minutes, even maybe around 30 minutes, at only 4,400, I think he's a viable cheap option. I'm not super excited about Bruno Fernando, but assuming he's starting still, I think he is at least in play. But yeah, that's probably it for this game. I think a lot of the appeal in this game is coming from the top options, the obvious plays. Ja Morant, KPJ, Desmond Bane, Jalen Green. Those are the really appealing options in this game. But let's go ahead and move on to the next one, talk about the 2 late night games. So we got Denver and Golden State here. Looking at Denver, I think Nikola Jokic is the one guy that really stands out from Denver. Pretty much any slate Jokic is on, he is going to be a top pay-up option. Now, he wasn't great in their season opener against the Jazz. Just 33 minutes, 46 fantasy points from Jokic. Obviously, a down game from him. Golden State, I think, has historically done a pretty good job at kind of limiting Jokic. I mean, Golden State, they're a good team. They know how to defend well, but Jokic is matchup proof. Now that Jokic is 11,200 and it's a slate with minimal value, I don't think Jokic is going to be someone that I force into my lineups today because I think it's going to be really tough to make good lineups with Jokic, but he always has upside and no one would be surprised if Jokic put up 70 here. Jamal Murray is questionable for this game, so that will be something to monitor. If Jamal Murray does sit, I think that's even better for Jokic. But none of the Golden State guys really stand out. It looks like they're going to be limiting limiting Clay and Draymond Green to start the season, at least those 2 guys. There were some reports that the Warriors were going to be limiting all their starters to start the season. I don't think that was kind of the case, though. I mean, Steph Curry played 33 minutes in their season opener. Andrew Wiggins played 30 minutes. Klay Thompson, he was limited. He only played 20 minutes. Draymond was limited. He played 24 minutes. But I think we can expect pretty normal minutes for Steph, for Wiggins, probably Jordan Poole as well. But obviously no interest in Clay or Draymond right now on a minutes limit. Poole, I don't really like it, his price tag. Wiggins, not a big fan of. On this slate, I think Steph is just kind of like a GPP option. I would prefer a guy like Ja Morant. I think I'd rather get up to Jokic if I could. But we know Steph has massive upside. He obviously had a huge game in their season opener against the Lakers. 33 points, 6 rebounds, 7 assists, 4 steals, and a block. Like Steph is amazing. I mean, he's a great player. He has a ton of upside, but I don't think he's like someone that I'm really trying to prioritize today. There's definitely other guys I'd rather spend up for if I'm going to spend up. And on the Golden State or on the Denver side, excuse me, only thing I want to talk about here is that Jamal Murray is questionable. So if Jamal Murray winds up sitting for Denver, slight bumps up for that. That really gives a little boost to Jokic, Gordon, and MPJ. But I think really from Denver, we would want to talk about some of the value. So if he does wind up sitting Jamal Murray, I don't know who would start. If it would be Bones Highland, if it would be Ish Smith. I think they like Bones Highland coming off the bench, so it might be Ish Smith who would get the start if he does sit. I don't even know if Ish Smith was in the rotation last game. He only played 5 minutes, but I guess if Ish Smith does start, he's minimum salary on DraftKings, and Ish Smith has historically been like a decent point per minute player. So if Jamal Murray does sit today and Ish Smith starts, I'm kind of interested in Ish Smith as a value option. It's definitely worrisome because Bones Highland is a good backup, and like obviously Bones Highland has a chance to see more minutes as well. Bones might just be the better play in general, but if they do decide to bring Bones off the bench, like I just worry a little bit about his minutes. Like I don't know if they're going to let Bones play 33, 34 minutes off the bench, whereas if he was starting, I think there would be a chance that he'd play like 30 plus minutes. Last game, he came off the bench, he played 16 minutes. It'll definitely be, there will be more minutes available for both Bones and Ish Smith. Whoever starts, I feel a little bit better about, but Bones, I think, is the better per-minute player. I would want to see Bones start, but I think the Nuggets kind of want to keep him in like a sixth-man role. So that will be something to monitor. That could open up some value on this slate, if Jamal Murray does wind up sitting. But that's really it for this game. I think we can go ahead and talk about the last game of the night, the Suns and the Blazers. So starting off with Phoenix, I'll just go ahead and say, like, nothing really stands out on Phoenix today. Devin Booker, Chris Paul, DeAndre Ayton, I think they're all priced appropriately. Mikal Bridges, Cam Johnson, I mean, I'm not going to roster those guys on a 11-game slate. On the Portland side, though, there's a couple guys I do like on Portland. Now, Damian Lillard, 9,500, another guy that I think is just kind of priced appropriately. He's always in play for GPPs, but I'm not going out of my way to roster Damian Lillard today. I think Nurkic, though, looks pretty appealing. Nurkic is only 6,100. He was really, really disappointing in the season opener. I had a lot of interest in Nurkic on that slate Wednesday. Didn't wind up playing him in my main lineup, but I definitely was looking at some builds that had Nurkic. He played 25 minutes, only had 20 fantasy points, 8 points, 7 rebounds, 1 assist, 2 steals, 4 turnovers. Not the best game from Nurkic, but we do know that Nurkic is a really productive player when he gets minutes, and he's a guy that can stuff the stat sheet, offers a ton of upside. I think at 6,100, like Nurkic just has so much upside to blow this price out of the water. It seems like, I feel like Nurkic this year is going to be like a boom-bust player. I feel like he's going to have games where he puts up like 25, and he's going to have games where he puts up 50. And you just got to hope that you roster him on the day he puts up 50. I think going up against DeAndre Ayton, like they're probably going to need Nurkic out there. They're going to need a guy with size. So I think the minutes are going to be pretty secure here for Nurkic. I'd be surprised if he plays 25 minutes again. I think most likely scenario is you get like 28 to 30. And Nurkic can put up 45 DraftKings points in 30 minutes. 6,100 is way too cheap for Nurkic for the upside he has. He is by far my favorite play in this game. Have a ton of interest in Nurkic today. I think Josh Hart's also in play. He's still very cheap on DraftKings, just 5,400. We know Josh Hart's going to play big minutes, and he's going to have a pretty good role with the Blazers. In their season opener, played 38 minutes, 19 points, 7 rebounds, 5 assists, a steal, 2 turnovers. I mean, Josh Hart's a good producer. He's a point-per-minute player. He's a guy that can do everything when he's on the floor. He's a really, really good rebounder. 5,400 for a player that's going to probably play 36, 37 minutes and average close to a fantasy point per minute. This is too cheap of a price tag. So I think Josh Hart's a really good play here. I do like him quite a bit as a kind of cheaper value on the slate. 2 favorite plays in this game are definitely Nurkic and Josh Hart. Don't even mind Jeremy Grant or Anthony Simons, but they're not like standout plays. I think the 2 standout plays here are Nurkic and Hart. But that's it for this game, guys, and I think that's it for this 11-game slate for Friday night. I hope you guys enjoyed this game-by-game breakdown. I hope it did help. If you guys enjoyed these videos, make sure to hit that like button, hit that subscribe button as well. If you do want to get more content from me, you want my player pool, my core plays for both DraftKings and Yahoo, I do provide those over on Patreon. I do also give out some additional PrizePicks plays over on Patreon. And again, PrizePicks, they are the sponsor of this video. Check them out, sign up, use promo code NOAH. When you do sign up for PrizePicks with my promo code, they will match your first deposit up to $100. And again, I do provide some PrizePicks plays on Patreon. Do also give out some PrizePicks plays on YouTube. I should have a video posted either later tonight or sometime on Friday, sharing a couple of plays I like for PrizePicks today. Definitely check that video out if you already are playing on PrizePicks and you want to know some props that I'm liking. But if you're not playing on PrizePicks, get over there, sign up, use code Noah, and get your first deposit match up to $100. But that's it for Friday night slate, guys. I hope you guys win some money on this slate. I do wish you the best of luck. Thanks as always for checking out these DFS videos. Hope you guys enjoyed the content, and we'll see you in the next one.